Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bleav in Bengal podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Solomon Wilcots. And of course, I'm joined by our Cincinnati Bengals insider, Charlie Goldsmith. Hey, Charlie. Breaking news around the National Football League pertaining to Joe Burrow. It has now been announced that he will return to practice in a limited capacity, which means the 21-day window has opened for him to make a return to the 53-man roster. As you well know, he currently is on injured reserve, but that 21-day window means that within 21 days, he could be placed back on the 53-man roster. That puts a timeline of about maybe the next 3 weeks, which means he could be back by Thanksgiving Day for the Baltimore Ravens game, week 13. To that, you say what?
I guess let's see how this goes. Today's day one for Joe Burrow. They could, in 3 weeks, add him to the 53-man roster, but just keep him as their third quarterback for the rest of the season. Yep. Or he could be out there on Thanksgiving against the Ravens. He technically could be out there next Sunday, not this Sunday, but next Sunday against the Patriots. So it's a very wide spectrum, anywhere between 2 weeks and 8 weeks, because they need to see how he feels, how he does, how he responds. So some obviously new territory for him coming back from this injury, but this is the starting point of his road back.
Well, a good friend of mine, as you well know, Fox reporter, he's an insider of the NFL, Jay Glazer, who's not prone to hyperbole. Jay is not a guy that looks to get the scoop on everybody else. He's kind of the guy that if he drops a few breadcrumbs, you might want to follow him because it tends to lead to fertile soil. He did report that he had a conversation with Joe Burrow and had asked when he expected to return. And Joe Burrow said to him, sooner than expected, I'm thinking I'll be back by Thanksgiving. Now, Jay did not make that report until it was announced that Joe Burrow was, on returning to practice with a limited capacity, and the 21-day window had opened. That was when Jay Glazer decided to deliver that information. So the two sort of coincide with one another, which is how I tend to kind of check things out. I know you have your process of determining maybe what's closer to reality than what is not. But the planets seem to align here, even though I'm really excited. I didn't think he would return at all, given the severity of the injury, a grade 3 turf toe injury. But it does seem like he's going to have an opportunity to return before the season is actually over.
And that's exciting, energizing for Bengals players, for Bengals fans, I'm sure for Bengals coaches. Something that I think has gone under discussed is, like Burrow wants to play. He wants to be out there. He wants to push himself, regardless of whether the team is, 10-0 or 9-0 or 3-6. And they're in the position they are now. But Burrow is just as motivated to go out and play football. And he's going to start today seeing what he can do out on that practice field.
This is why I am a die-in-the-wool huge fan of Joe Burrow. Because if everything about this young man tells you that he is the right guy, like it's rare that you have a player, and listen, players have to take care of their business. That's the business side of playing football. You have to take care of the contract stuff. You have to take care of all these things. But Joe Burrow is one of those rare players that he is never going to put anything in front of the ability to go out and win a football game. That's just who he is. If you know anything about his father, Jimmy, if you know anything about the climate and how he was raised at the knee of his dad, who is a football coach, right? His older brothers who are football guys, and he's been in it from day one, right? This guy is a competitor. This guy is all about the game. He wants to play. Many of us might argue you might want to give it a little bit longer, make sure you're 100% healthy before diving in the deep end of the pool and getting back on the field. Something tells me if you try to have that conversation with him, it's going to fall on deaf ears. He's going to do everything he can to get back as soon as he can.
And he's clearly done that from it's funny. We've talked a lot about the mental stuff that he's work through and overcome. And this is just another example of Burrow not getting worn down, not getting beaten down, not, being woe is me from another injury that he's had to deal with seemingly every season of his career. His resilience and perseverance when faced again with what feels like a frustrating situation, a frustrating circumstance, he's attacking this just like it would have been his first injury. And that's a part of why people follow him. That's part of why people bet their careers on him. It's why he's one of the highest paid people in the history of sports. It's what makes Joe Burrow everything that he is.
He's uniquely special. I think he's, in that sense, obviously he's a great competitor. He is a great talent. We watch him play and you know how talented he is. But his perseverance, this is not the first, the second, or the third or fourth time this guy's kind of been through some really, really difficult stuff that the average guy might tap out, or the average guy might find it psychologically challenging to be able to bounce back in this fashion. This is now the third time that we've seen a significant injury cost him playing time since he's began his NFL career. But you go back to his days at Ohio State. If you really know the story, right, Charlie, it did not go well for him there. All he did was persevere, graduate within 3 years, and got the hell out of there and went to LSU and had to convince that team and that town and that coach that he was the right guy for them. And that took some time for him to do. But when he had the opportunity, he took it and ran with it, and it led to unprecedented success.
It's what makes him the best leader on the Bengals. It's what makes him a guy who represents a lot about what the coaches and the organization wants the team and the culture to feel like. It's what gives them confidence that, like, when they're down 21-3 at Arrowhead Stadium in the 2021 AFC title game, that Burrow is going to lead them back. And it's what gives them confidence, when Burrow suffers another terrible injury, that he's going to push and he's going to attack and he's going to even set a tone in any way, in any capacity that he can in that moment. He has a very long history, as you documented, of this being who he is. And the resilience, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's only grown as he's faced more and more adversity.
Yeah, it hasn't worn out, right? It hasn't worn thin. This guy's built for this. I don't know if there's any other unique human being with all the challenges that, and there are challenges, internal, external. Every team, I think, has its own unique culture. Cincinnati Bengals are no different. It's a unique culture. If you were the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, that would be its own unique situation. Trust me when I tell you, I've been in every building of all 32 teams within this league. And I've found it fascinating that all 32 teams have their own unique culture, their own unique situation. And if you're the quarterback for any one of these 32 teams, you got to lead. Like if you're Dak Prescott, you got to lead the Dallas Cowboys with an owner like Jerry Jones, right? He's a different and unique situation or set of circumstance that comes with having that job, just like it's unique having this job. And I do believe no one in that building wants to win a championship more than Joe Burrow. I believe there's some other people who want to win as much as he does, but there's no one wants to win it as more than he does. And with that said, I think there's a unique hope for winning if he does return. I don't even know if they'll even still be in the playoff race, but something tells me that him coming back sooner rather than later even sets them up to be a better team moving forward. Even if it's not this year, it's going into next year.
You know what? Even if it's a day that here we are, on this podcast, 10 minutes in, we haven't said a word about the defense yet.
That's right.
That's got to be nice.
It's coming.
Well, no. My point is, it's got to be nice for those guys to feel like they're out of the spotlight. It's got to be nice for those guys to feel like there's a day, a minute where the laser's not pointed on them for being failures, disappointment, devastating. Like that's the pressure they felt over the course of the season and the heat that they've taken. And now Burrow comes in and the spotlight shifts. And that's got to feel like a weight off everybody's back to not have to wear it kind of in the same way for this conversation.
So think about this. When Joe Burrow was injured late September, really second week of September. So let's just say mid-September when he had the surgery to repair a grade 3 turf toe injury. He was given about 3 months, right, for expected healing and time to return. Thanksgiving, week 13, Baltimore Ravens falls right in line with the 3 months that was originally discussed. Okay, as you get to the end of October, end of November, and now you're talking about end of December. This puts us kind of closer to the beginning of December, where he's expected to return. I still think there's a lot to be decided, but the 21-day window has opened. He's already been away, for about 2 months. And so this 3 more weeks, so to speak, would give us about another month away. So we'll just have to wait and see. By the way, Joe Flacco has done a wonderful job in the 4 games that he has replaced not only Joe Burrow, but Jake Browning. The offense has averaged 32 points per game. In what way, once the Bengals return, they have game at Pittsburgh week 11, New England at home week 12, and then the Baltimore Ravens game. In what way do you think the Cincinnati Bengals can continue to improve offensively with Joe Flacco as their quarterback over these next few weeks?
I think it's just continuing to involve and highlight some of the supplementary pass catchers who have had their moments, who really had their moments against Chicago, and what should have been a winning performance from that side of the ball's perspective. You had some big plays from Noah Fant and Tanner Hudson and Mitch Tinsley and Yosavash. Those guys have to kind of continue along their journey with how much attention has been paid to T. Higgins and to Jamar Chase. And if they can do that, if they can continue to have success on the ground game, if they can adjust without Samaje Perine, who has an ankle injury, which if and how long he's out is a notable impact considering the importance of his role on this offense, having to adjust that way will be notable. You want to see the offensive guards continue to develop. Even though they've been scoring 30, 40 points a game, this offense still really does have room to grow.
Well, I was going to say, the thing that I would love to see continue to happen, because that's what allows those ancillary weapons to continue to flourish, right? Whether it's at the tight end position, the other receivers, and even coming out of the backfield. Joe Flacco's ability to get the ball out quick. I think that's something that even Joe Burrow, as he's watching this team move and the offense scoring 30 points a game and still having it difficult to finish off the games, I think sometimes when you step away as a player, you know what, Charlie, you said, you start looking, you see the game differently. You start to watch things maybe a little differently, right? And I think if there's one thing that Joe Burrow, as good as he is, by the way, one thing that he can take away to what Joe Flacco's been able to do, get the ball out, man. Get that ball's got to come out quick. Joe Flacco is not nearly as mobile as Joe Burrow is. So he knows he's got to get rid of it quick, because the ability to move around, run around, or extend plays with his legs is just not part of the mix. He doesn't have that skill set. He doesn't have that talent, and Joe Burrow does. But I think you could see the offense operates at a much more efficient level, at a much higher level, right, in terms of production. When the ball comes out fast, quarterback stays healthy, playmakers make plays, and you produce more points.
To an extent, but you've also seen plays, and I can think of a few in each game, where Flacco has been needed to create outside of the pocket. And of course, that's something that he's not able to do. Now, all right, shout out to Joe for the 2 terrific runs that he's had this season.
Yeah.
But that is a necessity, not a luxury from
right.
a quarterback's perspective in this league. So yes, ideally Burrow can get the ball out quickly. He can take fewer hits, but there's still going to be moments where he's going to have to put himself at risk. You know, that's life playing football. You can't just, if you say you're going to play it safe, it feels like that's where you can get yourself into the most trouble. Burrow's going to have to still take some chances, but a lot to build on with how quickly Flacco's been getting rid of the ball.
Oh, absolutely. And when I say get rid of the ball out quick, I'm not speaking from a safety perspective. I'm only speaking of offensive efficiency level. This is about getting the playmakers, getting the ball to the playmakers and making that happen at a much faster rate, at a much faster tempo. There are times when you say you're playing against a cover 2-man zone. There are covered. The safeties are in 2 zone, but everyone else is playing man coverage underneath. Those defenders turn their backs to the quarterback. There's a time when the quarterback, don't go throwing it. That's where you're using your legs to take off and run it. We all saw him do it in a Monday night game against the Giants where he ran 50 yards because everyone had their back to the quarterback. So there's certainly times to do that. When everyone's got their eyes on you and they're all concentrated on you, now that's when ball comes out quick. Ball's coming out, let the playmaker make play. So there's certainly some nuance to that. The AFC North, Charlie, is wide open. Pittsburgh Steelers have now lost 3 of their last 4 games after getting off to a 4-1 start. They've come back down to earth. The Baltimore Ravens now have won 3 in a row after a 1-5 start. There's still 1 game below 500 as they're sitting here, at 4-5. So they still have some work to do at the end of the day. But Cincinnati Bengals are sitting there at 3-6, and they're not too far out of it, right? 1 game behind the Baltimore Ravens and a couple of games behind the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, by the way, the Bengals have already beaten and getting ready to play again. This thing is still very much wide open within the divisional race.
Now, the difference is while the Ravens are just a game ahead, the Ravens are getting hot. They got Lamar back, and they have seemingly found some answers defensively. That defense was in its own month of chaos earlier this season, and they've emerged.
Yeah.
And watching them on Sunday, they played some good football on that side of the ball specifically. And oh, by the way, you've got Lamar Jackson now healthy. So they're on a steep upward trajectory. The Bengals defense is obviously on a steep downward trajectory that you need to see change during the second half of that season. But Pittsburgh, I could easily see taking a nosedive later in the year. I mean, the Chargers line is as banged up as it is, and still you didn't feel Pittsburgh's defensive line in that Sunday night game the way you feel like you should, and you should have. So those are encouraging signs for the Bengals in the AFC North, but still the Ravens are a looming presence, even though their record is what it is.
This is the Bleav in Bengal podcast presented by FanDuel. Of course, this segment's brought to you by heroes.com. Don't forget to go to heroes.com to order your Bleav in Bengals tumbler. It keeps your drinks cold in the summer and keeps them warm in the winter. Go to heroes.com. It's a product that really represents, as we get even closer to Veterans Day, it honors the heroes in our society that are putting in work to make it better for everyone on each and every day on a daily basis. I want to get to this, Charlie, because we do have upcoming games against Pittsburgh. New England is a really good football team. They've now won 7 straight games. The Baltimore Ravens, as you said, are getting hot. These next 3 games are so vital important. The Bengals are going to have to start stacking some wins if they want to even be able to utter the word playoffs. What has been the point of emphasis as they now are coming off the bye week? Every team has some point of emphasis that they want to focus on during the bye week and want to address as an area where they can improve and get better. What do you suspect that is?
I mean, defensively, who's going to step up? And there's a line that sticks with me, too, from a couple of weeks ago, talking to the Bengals linebackers coach. He said, we're still figuring out which zone coverages these guys are best at and how they execute, play A versus play B, and which plays better with this combination and which plays better when you give them some safety help. And there's still so much they're learning and so much they still feel like they haven't figured out yet. So they get to go deep into that process now. They've got to come up with some answers now coming out of the bye, but there's plenty of work to be done. And I don't know that all the answers are there and are going to be sorted out between now and the end of the season, but there is definitely a lot of work to do. And that's been a process they've been going through.
I want to address something because I'm constantly hearing this and people are pointing to Al Golden like he's the problem. I think you got to understand, this thing was already broke before Al Golden arrived, right? And yeah, he was supposed to come with some answers to help it get better. But I told you, I said he doesn't have his best defensive player during training camp, during the offseason, and Trey Hendrickson. The first-round pick, Shamar Stewart, was not even available until you got to training camp. Rookie players don't get better when they don't practice. I am flat out telling you. And so what has happened is that Al Golden has been asked to simplify things. so that these young players can play fast. Let's not make them think too much. Let's make it simple. Well, you only can get so simple before even the offense can see what you're doing. And when the offense can see what you're doing, you might as well be doing nothing. Because if the offense knows what defense you're in and know what to expect, they can dial up a play, because they are allowed to change the play at the line of scrimmage once they look at the alignment, and they can check to a more advantageous play. We call that calling an audible at the line of scrimmage. You may have heard of it. And so think about this. You can only get so simple before it becomes too simple to even play NFL level quality defense. And right now, I think the biggest problem is just trying to get production out of players to do the basic things. When I talk about what is the point of emphasis during the bye week, how about hold your gap? How about wrapping up when you tackle? How about using your shoulder pads when you come to hit and then wrap up with your arms to do that? How about just going back to the basic fundamentals of setting the edge in the run game and how to feel underneath whoever's setting the edge? And if you got outside containment, stay outside. If you have underneath feel, stay in your gap. These are basic fundamentals that at the end of the day, all of these players should have learned in college. This is not new learning at the NFL level. However, if you look at the tape that I've been watching, some of the games, all fundamentals have gone out the window. And so it should have been, let's get back to basics. Let's start getting players to do the things that we knew when we drafted you that you all could do. And I said all that to ask you this question. Of any of these young defensive players who we were expecting to make some improvement, I'm not even going to say a quantum leap or jump, significant jump, but just some improvement. I'm not going to name any names. Is there anyone that stands out to you on defense, high draft picks within the last few years that have made significant improvement that we can hang our hat on, Charles?
Well, you got one. You got DJ Turner, who honestly, and I've said this before, I was the low man on the totem pole on DJ Turner. I was not buying DJ Turner stock. I wasn't projecting him to be a starter this season. I was projecting that it'd be Dax and Cam. And, as I go through that again, DJ would be a starter, but a number 3, even with Josh Newton competing for some snaps, which Newton started over DJ Turner in week 1. That's where I was at with DJ. And then he's come in and proven that he's a number 1 cornerback in the league. So that has been a massive success story that now the coaches are like, be like this guy. You may feel low now, but see how DJ responded, see how DJ worked.
Yeah. You
can follow that path. And we need guys like that. There's opportunity here at every single position. So, but the problem is, aside from that, Shamar, Chris Jenkins, Jordan Battle, Bear Carter, Demetrius Knight, Cam Taylor-Britt, Josh Newton haven't had those types of seasons whatsoever.
There comes a time, I think, you got to just get pissed off, right? You got to, I played this game a little bit, just a little. There was a time where you just got to get really pissed off, because at the end of the day, you want your coaches to believe in you. You want your teammates to believe in you. You want the fan base to believe in you. When your family comes to games, you want them to believe in you. And let's face it, this team has put a lot of stock in some of the names you just mentioned. And it does come time where you just have to come through to show your value and show that you can be dependent upon. And that's exactly what Turner has done. DJ Turner has been phenomenal. He has bowed his neck. He's been determined to prove that he is a player that they can count on. And it's been a lot of fun watching him play at that level. All right, guys, now it's time to look ahead coming up right now with the next few weeks of the Cincinnati Bengals. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up, who have lost 3 of their last 4 games. Tell me what you expect in the Week 11 competition when the Cincinnati Bengals go to Pittsburgh, a team that we just beat, team that Joe Flacco was phenomenal against. Last I checked, they can't cover T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
The problem is, though, that Pittsburgh can't pound the rock, and especially coming off a game where Aaron Rodgers was pretty bad. And then you look at how the Jets and Bears have had success on the ground against the Bengals recently. I would expect the Steelers to try a very aggressive run game plan against Cincinnati and force the young Bengals defense to make plays. And if you do that, and then you control the time of possession, and then you keep Flacco and Higgins and Chase off the field, they could try to follow that formula. And whether or not they do that, that'll be the big storyline I'm following, because I feel pretty good about the Bengals passing game's ability to be productive. But can Pittsburgh do anything on the other side of the ball to try to mitigate that?
Well, as you saw in the Sunday night game, Aaron Rodgers struggled, 2 interceptions. His receivers struggled as well. So Cincinnati Bengals have a shot to go into Pittsburgh and come out of there a winner. Got to protect the football. Remember, the Steelers did move Jalen Ramsey, their star cornerback. He's now a safety in what they're doing defensively. So there is some nuance, some changes since the Bengals last saw them and since they won their last football game. Charlie, we want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're at the owners meeting covering Major League Baseball, so we got to let you get going. We want to thank everyone for joining us right here on the Bleav in Bengals podcast, presented by FanDuel. We'll see you next time, everyone.